They united to oppose the newly elected U.S. president, to march for women's rights, and for much more.
This is what democracy looks like! Black Lives Matter!
But what was touted as an inclusive march where love trumped hate sounded like a pro-choice platform that excluded pro-life women.
Reproductive rights are human rights.
There are very real and devastating consequences to limiting access to what should be considered basic health care.
The women who disagree say the liberals have hijacked the feminist cause.
They also purposely ignore and dismiss any woman who doesn't think like they do, like Kellyanne Conway, Sarah Palin, Ivanka Trump, or really any woman who doesn't hold free abortion or birth control as priority one for the nation.
Feminism is defined as the advocacy of women's rights on the ground of the equality of the sexes. But over the decades, the movement has evolved. The first wave of feminism in the early 1900s focused on women's right to vote. In the 1960s, women like Gloria Steinem fought for rights in the workplace and sexual freedom. But nowadays, the debate has broadened. Some women of different backgrounds argue that mainstream feminism has become elitist and too white-centric. And then there's conservative women. They say they're being left out, especially those who identify as pro-life feminists. U.S. President Donald Trump's top advisor, Kellyanne Conway, is championing a new label as a conservative feminist.
It's difficult for me to call myself a feminist in the classic sense because it seems to be very anti-male, and it certainly is very pro-abortion. Mercedes, I look at myself as a product of my choices, not a victim of my circumstances. And that's really, to me, what conservative feminism, if you will, is all about.
But is the feud over labels, new feminism, classic feminism, black feminism, ecofeminism, helping representation, or do divisions dilute the cause? Sandra Gatman, The Newsmakers.
Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by Micah Hazel from London. She's a blogger at The Huffington Post and an editor at Vocal Lady magazine, an online publication dedicated to promoting feminism. And from Dallas, Texas, Destiny Herndon-De La Rosa. She's the founder and president of an anti-abortion group called New Wave Feminists. Thanks, both of you, for joining us. Looking forward to the conversation. Micah, let's start with you. Kellyanne Conway says she's a feminist, so is she?
I think she is a feminist, but unfortunately there are some things within her opinion that we definitely need to discuss.
Like what?
Well, her feminism is apparently drawing off the idea that the feminism that is popular right now is anti-male. And I think that is a huge misunderstanding, and that's something that definitely needs to be, definitely was misinterpreted, because feminism isn't anti-male. In fact, we really just want to cooperate with men and get equal pay, equal respect, and equal rights.
Mm-hmm. Destiny, do you accept that for many classical feminists, for them it's almost like a doctrinal issue? For them, being a feminist and being pro-choice or pro-abortion is almost like being Catholic and being pro the Trinity. It's just a part of a kind of belief system. Do you accept that from classical feminists?
I mean, obviously not. Now, the original feminists were pro-life, so we're seeing this more in the third wave, that abortion is becoming synonymous with feminism. But, you know, I think it takes a whole lot of different perspectives, and we need more dialogue on this issue, certainly not less. That's where my group enters. We want to talk about how do we support women in crisis pregnancies, because the one thing I think both sides can agree on is at the end of the day, nobody wants an abortion. This is not something that, you know, little girls dream of growing up and getting to have one. It's almost always a decision made out of fear and panic. And so the more we can come together and say, how do we empower women so they don't have to make this violent choice, in my opinion, that's a wonderful common ground that we can find with pro-choice feminists.
Mm-hmm. Destiny, you were a part of the Women's March initially, officially, right? So you talk about empowering women, the New Wave Feminists. Now, I read that your group were official partners, you were included, and then you were excluded. Tell me why.
We made it very clear that we were anti-abortion, but we also laid out all the other things that we agreed with the March organizers on. We're very concerned about the Trump administration and the misogyny in Donald Trump's past. And so we felt like we would be a great voice to be added to this mix. Now, when it came out in an Atlantic article more publicly that we were pro-life, there was a lot of backlash against March organizers. And unfortunately, they kind of caved to that pressure and removed us. But we still marched. I mean, the only thing that changed is our name was no longer listed as a partner on the website.
Micah, would you accept that someone like Destiny, talking from Dallas, she's a partner in the same struggle? The only thing that she probably disagrees with you on is that she's anti-abortion, pro-life as she would call it, and you're not. Can you still be allies as feminists?
Yes, I think it's very important that, I personally do not agree with being pro-life. I do think it is very crucial to the feminist movement that we are pro-choice, just so women can have the right to what to do with their bodies. It's not necessarily to tell women to get abortions or to make abortions seem like something better than what it is. And I definitely agree that it's terrible. But I would say that if you are pro-life, you can be a feminist because there are several levels to feminism. However, I do think it's something that very much needs to be disputed and that we do need to get on a pro-choice platform.
Destiny, I want to ask you about Sarah Silverman, the comedian, and a tweet of hers very recently where she said, as a comic always working and on the road, I have had to decide between motherhood and living my fullest life, and I chose the latter. When you hear something like that from Sarah Silverman, she's a self-professed, self-described feminist. How do you feel?
I think that's an incredibly negative message that, again, it's telling me that women can't. We can't be mothers. We can't still live our life to the fullest. To me, that's a load of crap. So I actually do not like the fact that abortion rights oftentimes pit us against our own biology and against our own children. If we look at the root of feminism, it is basically us saying we are not property. We were treated as property for far too long, and now we have passed that same label down to the unborn person who's our own child and said, you are property and we should be able to treat you however we see fit because might makes right. I'm bigger and stronger and you're weak and vulnerable. So when Sarah Silverman says things like that, that kind of reiterate this fact that women can't, that to me is not feminism.
Micah, do you need more people to make the tent bigger and have less of this kind of, hey, you're either with me and my lifestyle or you're out?
Well, I think that whole you're with my lifestyle, you're out is the reason why, unfortunately, we do have conservative feminism. Because there are statements like what Sarah Silverman said that don't necessarily apply to all women. I think all Sarah was really saying was, in her life personally, she had to make that choice to choose between being a mother and pursuing a lifestyle, which sometimes doesn't go together. And it's not that feminists are saying that, women shouldn't be able to handle children or that, our children are just property that we're just going to give up. It's basically saying that if you come to a point where you have to do that, it's okay and it's understandable and we understand why. Not saying that, oh, well, you're bound to this child, you're bound to this life, you need to do both things, you need to do both things well. That's not what we're saying.
Micah, looking within the feminist debate as we're doing here, and there's always class elements, there's also racial elements, and I noticed from a lot of women of color, they criticize the Lena Dunhams of the world, the Amy Schumers, for an exclusively white feminism. Tell me what that means and what's the problem there?
Right. Well, obviously, whenever you have a movement, there are always, movements require action, and actions are always different. So you'll have the feminists like Emma Watson and Michelle Obama who are, promoting things like, I guess, education and promoting women in sports and women in jobs, just more, for lack of a better term, serious educational things. And then you have the feminists like Lena Dunham who are more sexually focused, who are more entertainment focused, satire, those kind of things that not all women, I suppose, can relate to. And sometimes, especially in the press, it can feel like one is getting an upper hand over the other. And in that case, the Lena Dunhams of the world sometimes get the upper hand in the press, and sometimes they're the ones that are being represented more as feminists, and they're the ones that get the spotlight, and it's a white woman. So people feel like, well, you know, I'm not a white woman. I'm not, you know, living in Brooklyn and living a great life. I'm not rich in any way, so I can't relate. And that's where you have people feeling like this is just white feminism. This is just this white middle class, upper class woman that I can't relate to. So that's why now we talk more about intersectional feminism, which even though a lot of people think that it's kind of branching off and splitting up feminism into different things, intersectional feminism is basically feminism itself. It's just a new term that's been used to make it clearer.
Okay, Destiny, are you looking forward to having a conversation with intersectional feminists as a conservative feminist?
Absolutely. Again, I think the more voices, the more experiences, the more background, you know, as we talk about, white feminism is a real issue because my experiences are going to be different than women of color. And so the more voices we can have at the table, the more women saying, this is my personal experience, this is what I've been up against, the stronger our movement will be.
Okay, it was great talking to both of you, Destiny Herndon-De and Micah Hazel. Thank you very much for joining us.